This is part 2 of a 2-part vlog. If you've missed part 1, I highly recommend that. It's where Jarrod does a rig rundown of his rig. It's 2 days after the gig that I'm filming this, and I'm still buzzing from the gig. Absolutely fantastic. So went to see the McCartney Songbook. I had an interview with Jarrod Loughlin, who is a keyboard player, who was very generous with his time. This is part 2 where Jarrod does a deep dive into the sounds that he uses. Absolutely fascinating. It goes through a lot of detail, and I hope you find this useful. And then at the end he talks a little bit about some of his favorite keyboard players that he likes to watch. So do stay until the end. I hope you enjoy.
Well, yeah, that'd be great.
I'll ring him because you are. I'm very glad to have Mr. Jarrod Loughlin. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure, Steve. Thank you for asking me.
Fantastic. If it's okay, we'll dive straight in and just ask, just right from the very beginning, just talk us through perhaps your process when you first got the set list, you're planning for the tour, you know what you're going to play. How do you go about sort of learning your songs, getting everything organised?
Well, first thing we have to do is basically split everything into what we're going to play live and what we're going to have playing on our click track. Now, it's no secret, obviously, that lots of West End shows and lots of bands, lots of even famous bands, have a click running. It keeps everybody in time, and it also means that we can have any AV time to our audio, and also any bits of percussion or any orchestra bits and bobs or some sound effects that we wouldn't maybe be able to do live, we can have on a track. So split those all up. Now normally the best way to do it is to think, what is the main part of the song? So for example, take Hello Goodbye, which is our opening song from the set. You listen to that, you dissect it, and the first thing that comes out is the piano part, which is played live. What you'll also hear on the track is a fluty mellotron in the background. Now I've got that with the percussion running on our Ableton Live click session as well, which again keeps us in time and adds all those bits that we wouldn't be able to play live. So sound-wise, for this particular song, I've gone right back to the source. Spitfire Audio do a fantastic range of the Abbey Road sampled instruments, and they do the actual Abbey Road Mrs. Mills.
Wow.
Now the Mrs. Mills is the piano that all this stuff was recorded on. There's the famous Mrs. Mills, there's the Steinway, and there's the Challen upright, which you'll see at in Abbey Road. Now the Challen upright is things like Lady Madonna and Martha My Dear, those sort of songs, and the Mrs. Mills is all of the other fantastic Beatles songs which you've heard, including Hello Goodbye. So ready programmed into the Spitfire engine is that exact setting. Now you can add tacks onto the hammers if you want to, virtually. You can add the pedal noise, which I'll demonstrate now. So honestly, on a usual real acoustic piano, when you lift up the pedal, I don't know if you can hear that in the background there,
yeah.
But when you lift up the pedal, you'll get the noise of the felts hitting the strings.
Yeah.
And that's what you can also emulate.
Fantastic.
So there's a great series on YouTube called Deconstructing. I forget the guy's name. And what they've done is they've either found the original master tapes or they've used AI to strip it all back, as you can do by taking vocals away from songs, whatever those are. So we've been able to basically find original piano tracks or original organ and the Billy Preston parts, any orchestration, any brass parts, and then we run those down. And so that's kind of the way we do it. What I've done live here is, for example, we move through here to a song called Jet, which is the big Wings track. Here, as you can see here from the main stage, which is running on the screen here, I've got the top split into saxophones, strings, and synth, and the bottom half is split to electric piano and acoustic piano in here. So, for example, when we want to play Jet, there I've got a baritone sax and a tenor sax playing the intro. This half is playing the Rhodes. Play it with a slight whirly on it. Play them up together and you get the mix straight away. The nice thing about running on MainStage with controllers is that we can kind of go quite authentic. I've also got, in addition to the Spitfire Mrs. Mills and the what's called the Jangle Box, another great Spitfire one, which is the other upright that they use in Abbey Road, we can go to the Moog. Now this is the UAD X Mini Moog, modelled on, looking exactly like the original Mini Moog that they would have used on Jet, Mammonia and thousands of other, not just Wings songs, but also other songs as well. So when we go to the Jet solo, and that's modelled on the original sound. We managed to find what's called the remix stems, which if you search online for songs, you can maybe usually find files with the drums, the guitars, the bass, the vocals, keyboard parts, and we found that exact keyboard part, which we've then painstakingly tweaked until we've got the right sound on there. And I use that for another two songs. Obviously, Band on the Run has got that sound as well with the, but that comes later on in our set.
It's lovely how even on like a modern keyboard, you can use that mono effect by just holding. I've noticed you held your one finger down and just set it on the other, just like it would have on the Mini Moog.
You can usually set the Moogs to be, for example, I think it's called something like last finger or something like that. It basically means that it holds the low note, allowing you to then play high notes, and it jumps from one to the other. You can reverse that, so when you get things like the Band on the Run and you're doing that noise, you play the low note, and it will jump up, back up, and back up each time. You can reverse that, so it's jumping down. But most of these songs, you want to get that nice. So the low note always takes precedence over the higher ones as well. So that's great. So we're using MainStage here with these external plugins as well. So I like to go as authentic as I can. So I like to use Moog, and I like to use samples of real pianos. I like to use real brass samples if I can. Lots of the East-West guys do. They're the guys that make the Fab 4 plugins, which is great. It's all the original Lowry organs and all the original uprights sampled and then processed for you to use on things, Mellotrons and stuff. A lot of stock Logic sounds as well. The saxophones on stock Logic are great. They've got a real rasp to them. And of course, the great thing about using MainStage as well is that you can have multiple sounds on a single key, boys and girls. So there we have 2 octaves of tenor with a baritone. So when you run up, so the baritone drops down, but the other saxes keep on going up as well. And that's, if you've got that sort of brain, you can get away with basically putting everything onto a minimum number of keys. And if you're playing everything live, that's really important. So rather than having to sort of play a load of chords live, for example, I'll jump through to a song called Silly Love Songs, which we play. You think that people would have had enough of silly love songs. Now you want to keep that live. Yes, if you're using click tracks while doing brass parts or strings, you can put that onto the thing. Or you put it onto a single key. Within MainStage, there's an effect called chord trigger, which you can set any chord pattern, which you can manually input onto a single key of your choice. So here, for example, I've got what I would play here, set to 3 keys. Using the same sound, with the same articulation. So the harder you hit it, and then the brass is set up the top end. So the top end, we've got 2 tenors, baritone, and a set of trumpets as well, which means it can give you that. Like that. And you don't have to then complicate yourself by playing 3 or 4 different chords in your right hand. And when you've got a lot of stuff to do, it means you can basically play every part with minimum fuss. If you can get it all onto a single finger while that's doing all this, why wouldn't you? I think anyway. So, but that's the way that we've done that. And as we move through, as you can see here, so here is our Penny Lane sound. So we're going to just show you a couple of different sounds on for Penny Lane. We have the piano on the lower keyboard. By the way, this is the M-Audio Hammer 88 Pro, which is a lovely slimline, relatively lightweight hammer action unit, completely USB powered. It can be powered by mains if you wanted to, but I'm powering it USB off of the Mac. And it has all of the controls, sliders, knobs, rotary, pads that you would get from something like the top one, which is the M-Audio Oxygen 61, or any of your Nectars, or any of those controllers which you would use, which are great for recording. If you want to be using the sliders, you can program within MainStage. You can program them to be volume, which I've got here. I've got just that one as a volume. If anything goes wrong, I can just switch the volume off. If we want to have any songs fading in or out, we can have the song fading in and out. Main thing for the controllers is if you're using Hammond organ and you want to be able to control rotaries. So you're controlling the sliders, for example, you want to control your Hammond sliders. You can do those all mapped here. So here we've got a tubular bell set to C1, which is your fireman. We have a piccolo sound set in the center. That's actually two piccolos set slightly left-right. So when you play them, you're getting it as like not a stereo feel, but certainly you're hearing them from the left and right of the speakers up there. At the top, we've got our trumpet solo. Which is modelled on a piccolo trumpet. It's not as piercing as the trumpet on the original, but when you're playing live, you want to have a slightly softer tone. The softer tone does cut through, which is great as well. On the lower section, we have actually got the brass part with the famous. Now on that, we're using the East-West orchestral brass. But we've got it set to a chord trigger, and if you can see this from here, so I've got this section here, from the A to the B, set. So when I press the B, it plays those two notes. Okay, so for example, that's playing an F sharp and an A, so nowhere near the B. I've got that set on a rundown. Now you might say that's a bit of a cheat, but when you're playing the piano in the right hand as well, so much easier than having to play, left-hand stuff. If your left hand isn't particularly hot, like mine's not, my right hand's okay, but left hand isn't particularly hot for doing any fast stuff, it's so much easier to have. And that's all done within MainStage as well, which is great. And that's kind of how we decide what parts we're going to play. It's all on a song-by-song basis. Sometimes we've got Hammond, sometimes we've just got electric piano, sometimes it's a combination of the two, sometimes there's all sorts of stuff going on, synths here, keyboards there. But again, it all depends on the song.
Nice.
Long answer to a very short question.
I'm going to put Jarrod. I know you tour as a bass player.
Yes.
A tremendous vocalist.
Oh, thank you.
Backing vocals and as a keyboard player who I admire deeply. I did say, so we're going to ask people when we do these to pick their top 3 keyboard players that you like to listen to.
Okay.
Who might they be? So it's sort of a live scenario. Perhaps if you're watching live videos or YouTube, who do you enjoy watching?
3? Oh, God, okay. I would say for synthesizer parts, it's got to be Tony Banks.
Nice.
Genesis is one of the biggest influences on my playing, outside of playing this sort of tribute band stuff, you can call it. But yeah, Tony Banks for the synth and layered parts, you can't really beat it. As a piano player, wow. I mean, you can go back to the guys in the Snake Pit in the Motown studio, any of those guys. McCartney never called himself a piano player, he's a musician. I mean, he would never call himself a bass player or anything, he would just say he's a musician. His parts are so well worked out, piano, organ, mellotron, harmonium, anything like that, all very much part of the song. And I like parts that are part of the song. So you can pick them out, but also sometimes you can't hear them until they're not there.
Yeah.
When the part drops out, you think, oh, what's that synth gone? Where's that piano gone? So I would say, yeah. I mean, melodically, Tony Banks, for the songwriting, McCartney's piano playing is great. Check out some of the, again, on the Deconstructing YouTube videos, check out his piano playing on Maybe I'm Amazed, in his house, basically just hitting his piano with all the vigour of a man who's just broken up from the Beatles.
Excellent. Jarrod, thank you so much for your time today. It was absolutely wonderful.
Absolute pleasure, Steve. Thank you very much.
And I'm going to enjoy the gig in a minute.